What if the monsters from your darkest nightmares weren't just stories, but walked among us, fueled by something far more sinister than mere human depravity? From the cold, mist-shrouded forests of 16th century Germany, a name echoes through history, whispered with a dread that chills to the bone. Peter Niers, a man whose existence blurred the line between human evil and the truly demonic, a phantom of the medieval age whose heinous acts birthed legends of a monster, a shapeshifter, a devourer of souls. This isn't just a true crime story. It's a chilling descent into the heart of darkness, where folklore and reality merge into a terrifying saga that will make you question what humanity is truly capable of. Prepare yourselves, because the tale of Peter Niers is not for the faint of heart. Imagine a world perpetually shrouded in dim light, where superstition reigned supreme, and survival was a daily struggle against famine, disease, and the constant threat of banditry. This was the world Peter Niers was born into, around 1540, in the rugged region near Neumarkt, Germany. We know very little about his early life, and perhaps that's part of the terror. Was he born evil, or did the crushing weight of poverty, the harsh realities of a life devoid of hope, carve him into the monstrosity he became? What we do know is that he quickly found himself on the fringes of society, an outcast driven by desperation and a growing insatiable hunger for something more than just survival. This wasn't the kind of bandit who simply stole bread. Niers was destined to leave a crimson stain across the history of Europe, his name synonymous with an unspeakable evil that few could comprehend. His story begins in the shadows, a forgotten face among the countless poor, yet his legacy would become unforgettable. This was 16th century Germany, a land ripe for darkness to take root. Niers wasn't a lone wolf for long. He soon fell in with a brutal gang of roving bandits and murderers, men as desperate and cruel as himself. But even among them, Niers was different. He wasn't just a killer, he was a meticulous, almost ritualistic predator. Over the course of a staggering 15 years, Peter Niers and his gang terrorized the German countryside, leaving a trail of horror across what is now France and Germany. They didn't just target merchants or wealthy travelers. Their victims were often the most vulnerable: women, children, and pregnant women. The brutality was shocking, the sheer volume of their crimes almost unbelievable. They moved like ghosts through the night, appearing in small villages, on lonely roads, leaving devastation in their wake. They would often strike silently, ambush unsuspecting travelers, and then vanish into the darkness before anyone could raise an alarm. Think about it, a time when communication was slow, justice was brutal but often localized, and fear spread faster than any rumor. How would you feel if you were one of the victims, traveling alone in such a time, knowing such a monster roamed the roads? It wasn't just about robbery, it was about something far more disturbing, something that spoke to a deeper, chilling motivation. As Niers's infamy grew, so too did the terrifying myths surrounding him. People struggled to explain such profound evil. How could a mere man commit such atrocities? The answer, for many, lay not in human depravity, but in the supernatural. Whispers began to circulate that Peter Niers wasn't just a man, but a shapeshifter, capable of transforming into a stone or a tree to escape capture, or even a dog to stalk his prey unseen. Villagers swore he had made a pact with the devil himself, granting him unholy powers and an insatiable hunger for human flesh. These legends claimed that Niers and his gang weren't just murdering, they were performing dark rituals, harvesting specific organs, especially the fat of their victims, to craft magical salves that would grant them invisibility and further power. It was said they would eat the hearts of their victims, believing it would absorb their courage or life force. The most gruesome of these tales alleged that they targeted unborn children, believing their flesh to be potent in dark magic. Imagine the terror of this era, where such stories weren't just campfire tales, but a very real explanation for the inexplicable horrors plaguing their world. What do you think is the worst thing Peter Niers ever did? Was it the murders, or the horrifying rituals he supposedly performed? For 15 years, Niers evaded capture, a shadow figure haunting the roads and forests, his legend growing with every vanished traveler. But even the darkest reign must eventually come to an end. In 1581, while traveling near Neumarkt, a series of seemingly innocuous events led to his downfall. He had reportedly been staying at an inn, and perhaps feeling overconfident, he decided to clean himself up. He visited a public bathhouse, a rare luxury for a man living on the run. A local innkeeper who had been a victim of the gang years prior recognized a distinctive scar on Niers's face and grew suspicious. He discreetly alerted the authorities, and a small group of town guards moved in. Niers, still relaxing in the bath, was caught completely off guard. The terror of Europe, the man who had dodged capture for so long, was finally apprehended. What followed was a confession that sent shivers down the spines of the medieval world and continues to shock us today. Under the intense, often brutal interrogations common in the 16th century, Peter Niers began to speak. And he didn't just speak, he unburdened himself of a lifetime of unspeakable evil. Over the course of several weeks, Niers confessed to a staggering 543 murders, a number that still feels impossible to comprehend. He detailed the horrific rituals, the cannibalism, the pacts with demonic entities, the use of human remains for dark magic. He named accomplices, recounted specific crimes, and painted a chilling picture of his life as a monster. He described how he would pray to the devil at crossroads, how he used the fat of his victims to make a special candle that, when lit, would make him and his gang invisible. This was not a simple confession. It was an encyclopedia of horror, a peek into a mind that had completely shattered the boundaries of human morality. The sheer volume and depravity of his admissions solidified his place as one of history's most prolific and terrifying serial killers. Can you imagine the reaction of the townsfolk as these details emerged? They knew evil walked among them, but they never truly grasped its depth until Niers himself laid it bare. The confession sparked a frenzy of fear and outrage, and the demand for justice was deafening. Peter Niers was sentenced to death, but not just any death. For a man who had committed such monstrous acts, the authorities decreed a punishment designed to be as terrifying and drawn out as his crimes. His execution was a public spectacle, a chilling 3-day ordeal meant to cleanse the land of his evil and warn any who dared to follow in his footsteps. On the first day, Niers was subjected to a public flagellation, his body scourged while the crowd watched. On the second day, 10 strips of flesh were torn from his body with red-hot pincers, a gruesome display of pain and retribution. Finally, on the third day, the ultimate torment, Peter Niers was taken to the wheel, a medieval torture device designed for slow, agonizing death. His limbs were systematically broken one by one before he was eventually quartered. The execution was not just about ending his life. It was about exorcising the evil he represented from the collective consciousness, a brutal performance of justice in an age that understood little mercy for such crimes. It was a clear message to all. This was what awaited those who dared to dance with the devil. Did Peter Niers deserve such a fate? Despite the brutal spectacle of his execution, Peter Niers did not simply disappear from history. Instead, his name became immortalized, morphing from a terrifying reality into a chilling legend. For centuries, mothers in Germany would warn their children, "Be good, or Peter Niers will get you." He became a boogeyman, a cautionary tale whispered by the firelight, his story weaving its way into the very fabric of folklore. His legend served as a stark reminder of the horrors that could lurk just beyond the village walls, a real-life monster who validated the darkest fears of a superstitious age. Even today, his name evokes a sense of unease, a lingering question about the true nature of evil, and how much of it is born from man, and how much is influenced by the darker forces we can barely comprehend. His story isn't just a historical footnote, it's a testament to how profoundly a single individual's actions can scar a society and shape its collective memory, echoing through generations. What is the lesson to learn from Peter Niers centuries later? Looking back at Peter Niers through a modern lens, it's tempting to try and dissect his mind, to understand the psychological mechanisms that could drive a human being to such depths of depravity. Was he a psychopath, devoid of empathy, experiencing a thrill from the suffering he inflicted? Or was he a product of his time, pushed to the edge by unimaginable hardship, only to cross a line from which there was no return. The confessions, filled with tales of demonic pacts and ritualistic cannibalism, paint a picture that defies simple psychological classification. It speaks to a mind that either genuinely believed in these dark forces or cleverly used them as a framework to rationalize and even elevate his monstrous acts. In a world where mental illness was completely misunderstood and often attributed to demonic possession, Niers's story served as the ultimate proof of evil made manifest. He wasn't just killing for gain, he was driven by something far more complex, a terrifying blend of practical criminality and what appears to be a deeply disturbed, perhaps even ritualistic, compulsion. He became not just a killer, but an archetype, a representation of the ultimate betrayal of humanity itself. The story of Peter Niers reminds us that some horrors are timeless, reaching across centuries to touch the deepest parts of our fears. His legend, born from an era of darkness and superstition, continues to haunt us, a chilling whisper of what lurks in the shadows. Subscribe to Foxhole History.